saying women that I've known that I don't know make me into a patriarchal object of the father that is deceased, whether he still lives or not. I've never talked to women about any difficulties or shocks and disruptions in their relationships with their fathers and men. Come together, no pun intended, although it's kind of interesting, once or twice a year, and just, be behind plexiglass windows and talk about things to do with how men have been a disruptive part of their life, and what man, if any, wonderful part of their life, aka their daddy. I don't really want to have that discussion, but I've learned more about my, and one of the things I started to notice in the years I spent living with my mom, into her older years now, and I love her dearly, clearly, is vivid moments in her life, that are hard to listen to, of how angry she was at her father and how he didn't know her at all and didn't understand her at all. And to be around a man to his dying days who didn't really know her, had never gotten to know who she really was, and whose religion and whose stoicism and other pains that he had undergone to hide or make the best of in the pretext of his religion or his gender or his life's work, and so on. And his love for probably my mom and stumble just left her alone and terribly angry. To know that my mother was separated from her father was separated from her, and a wedge was put. And this son of his, who raped my mother, and I suspect helped to murder her own little sister, and my mom would never I would never put it to her to think about that, but, was a big part of that wedge. Because when you're assaulted by a sibling in that way, it does put a wedge between you. And the brother maintained a patronizing, holistic relationship with my mother, and is now suffering from a broken hip or something. And it's like, I don't wish anyone pain, but I'm glad for anything, ultimately, who takes him away from my mom, even if it takes him out of this world. I just think my mom's life would be better if he wasn't in this world or wasn't in her world. And I thank him for not calling her anymore. Because I tried to take measures. It was very risky for me to put information onto Facebook about what this man did. This picture, and then at the right time pull it off. Because it could be deemed libel, obviously. But I wanted to protect my mom and just leave it at that, because this fucker, and you shouldn't be angry at your own flesh and blood. And maybe people say, I'm not, it's there. It's just there. And it was there before I found out. And I know I took the time to find out. I've been studying and chasing this information for 25 years. So when you think about, hey man, what do you really do with your life? Well, I investigated the rape of my mother from the time I was born. What have you been doing? They're not going to make a movie about it. What do I get out of it? Nothing. Nothing, absolutely nothing. Do I get money? No. Do I get acknowledgement? No. Do I get more pain? Yes. Is there someone to talk to about this? No. You think any fucking psychologist understands the fucking genius that allowed me to come at this the right way? You don't just walk through life and go, oh, my mother was raped. I was spiraled around it for 40 years. This is part of life. This is humans, their organic systems, their protective systems. I'm not trying to be new agey when I say this, and there's lots of other problems we deal with that this information would be useless to, but in a general sense, having gone through a lot of pain, okay, more than I know, I'm sure, it comes out of me, I'm sure, more than I know, more than I can even cognize it. Someone listening to this could probably have a better idea of how much pain I've lived in than I could. And then hopefully, if that would mean something to you, go off and learn something from that. But that we do spiral around pain. Pain is in our symbiotic system, and all these things, these fractures. Like humans can look at a system of bacteria or snails or stars and see ruptures in the system and forces, and sudden changes in human ecosystems. But we're very difficult for us, for some reasons, and maybe some really not good reasons, at looking at real fractures, not sin, not debt, not evolution, not life is just that way, not even just depressions and economic downturns in various nations, and nations taken up with wars of certain zeal that involve genociding Jews or something. history. What about the spiral of just how we sustain any and all pain? Not even in terms of culture or war or disease or evolution or genetics or medicine or even religion or spirituality, but just the pain that just transcends all of those things. And we spiral around it. Can you really quantify and put into some philosophy the pain of your mother being raped by her brother? No, of course not. That would be ludicrous on face value. But that we have to work with it anyway, and we have to work with stuff that isn't going to fit into a nice little poem about rape in our master's thesis about being a feminist Jew, which I came across someone like that once, and not a nice person really. It's like, I deal with real things all of my life. I didn't do a master's thesis. I write 2 books that opened up to this information by the time I was 21 years old and starting at 18. I wrote a script, I wrote a play, I wrote a film, I guess I should say. And then millions of other hours doing millions of other things that didn't always, but I knew had purpose. And I say as the sun comes out, I find it an okay purpose in life. I had up to in retrospect to find out that my mom was raped by her older brother. You imagine how much that helps you. And then look at what it explains. That it explains in your own life, books you wrote when you were young, behavior of your family, behavior of your mom towards your dad, physical disabilities your dad sustained and he doesn't know where they came from, back conditions, intestinal issues, because my mom's rage affects that in her primary male and leaps out of her body like a parasite. It has a mind of its own, and shock has a mind of its own. So to find out what has shocked your mother helps relieve that shock from your life. And watching this, what if I told you and writing books about it, I was being sent to hospital from the sexual abuse my mother or her friends were doing to me, including dislocated shoulders 20 times in my lifetime. And think of how painful that is. And being sexually harassed when I was at the hospital quite often. And by other people around me who would dislocate my shoulder. And showing me that the power of the disintegrating energy that this female or this group member was conveying into my domestic condition in life. And what they believed and what I believed and the nature of our interaction. All those things, all that information, all that knowledge, spiraling and spiraling and spiraling, so that taking it onto that quest to live with my mother, to end the domestic abuse, to find out this information, to go wherever my mind needs to go. That will change over the years, where I call it evil and schizophrenic and economic systems and all the big doom and gloom ways that I can talk about the world. And we can, because the world with dark magic. And no, you're not supposed to just like, whoa, the veil is lifted. All dark vampires and evil energy and everything that people do, money staining your blood, death, death, death to everyone with every word that comes out of your stupid mouth. And in a way that's, and it's important to look at that. And then humans have an immune system. I think about these negative things and you can listen to them. Not because, oh man, you're full of shit, but because you have an immune system. If there's some kind of invisible gas and everyone's getting diabetes, proven there's an invisible gas, you're like, fuck man, fuck you, but oh, that could be helpful. You know, we've been resisting it, but like this will help us. You know, you're not without. I'm not talking to weak, helpless fucking human beings. I'm talking to billions of human beings, many of whom might want to kill me, and saying, if I'm right, this is what we've been enduring. This is why you're proud of what you do. This is why your work, however misconstrued by the economic system or you or both in some grand codependent relationship that makes the banks and your rulers very, very happy, right? But yet you have endured. Anyone who's ever seen or experienced violence or studied it knows how, or can appreciate how complex and multi-twisted and schizophrenic the various levels of, hey, what happened? Am I crazy? Why are you saying this to me? I'm not saying this to you. And how people can do aggressive things and say aggressive things and accuse you of aggressive things, and just a tsunami of so many different levels of violence that you could spend the rest of your life going, yeah, that's violent, and that's violent, and that's violent, and that's violent. Holy fuck. And this person's just living a happy little domestic life somewhere. And at the same time, how could I ever resist that? How could I? There is no counterattack. People who resort to certain things that aren't necessarily all that useful in how they imagine their professional, social, and religious and sexual existence are nonetheless very good by habit at exerting an enormous amount of criminal dominance over other people, while all the time thinking that they are righteously justified in doing so. And it's an aspect of love and goodness and greatness. And people that will probably credibly consider themselves their victims, they consider people who are just thankless twats who don't realize they're doing them the biggest favor of their life and setting them on the high and straight and narrow path. Do you want humans teaching other humans who behave that way? But we have to live with that. I had a driving instructor that way. I've had roommates that way. I've had spiritual people come up to me and talk to me that way. It's normal. It's normal everywhere. And you can be pathetic. That's a form of our own magical thinking. Well, okay, people, there's a certain measure in your mind. People trick, maybe you like getting your palms read, okay, and sometimes there's some credible for people who live in these magical worlds. But 99% of it, you could really like it's just shit, right? The world loves the imagination and kindness of a child's mind. And in many respects, though we lose in respects of childhood, or it goes away and can only be restored by pushing the darkness away that most people consider light. Light that shines in the darkness, the audience often are to each other's special personality complex cults that comprehendeth it not, but yet does in a way that our brain goes happy and sad and watches people kill, murder, collect taxes, get married, love the world, and get killed and be loved by their. And it's like, oh, it's all fun and entertaining. And the darkness comprehendeth it not. It does. When someone's lying to you and conning you, you understand everything they're saying, and your brain just divides it up like the split wave experiment. It's like, okay, good, and then there's like bad aspects, and we'll put that down there, and that down there, and that down there, and you're laundering the sort of sending you, and they'll speak in such a way that even though you know how contradictory what they're saying, bad dwarfs the good, you end up focusing and preferencing the good things that they're alluding to, right? And that's what a good sociopath, psychopath, government, cult will do. And a good cult follower who's grown up in a normal urban experience seems strangely adept at doing this for themselves. And that's what the police do. That's what people in the medical industry do. It's what people in any cult does. In any group, any profession has a cult capacity. This is one of those dark, true things about the world. So when you say, okay, well, this police officer did something wrong, here it helps you understand why. It's not just isolating this bad apple, but showing how everything, even remotely credibly good about the police, involves a culture that is meant to be inevitably this bad. So you don't just get a bad apple. There's different biopsies of the entire network or tree, which is bound to reach out and fuck someone. It just goes with it. It's symbiotic. It's doing this, but to do this, it has to do this. And by doing this, it helps it do that. And so every police officer is like a schizophrenic. They're a Janus person. They serve two masters, God and the devil, right? The criminal and the righteous lawmaker, right? They're both people. All of life is split-brained, right? The entire modern world is schizoid. And so if you start using your subconscious and resonating it with your neocortex, your conscious mind, the part where you usually say, hey, I would like some beer and some chips and to touch myself, or therefore I am, and then I am good. My name is so-and-so, right? And these other forces, which are often emotional or require a surreal use of your imagination and your dark and macabre insights into the world around you that aren't explained by the good things. All the good things that the conscious person, citizen thinks about doesn't explain all the bad things. And yet that person will see something, a teacher sexually assault a child, or like, oh, wow, that guy's just sick. They'll never think that that's just a problem with the teaching profession. If a Catholic priest, fuck children, they'll be like, oh, well, there's just pedophiles in every profession, and there's a lot of priests. So it's not like Catholicism itself makes child fucking inevitable as much as Buddhism does. Because the magical thinking that says that a man who's even willing to be celibate is going to be able to restrain himself when placed around lots of orphan children whose energy fields have already been disintegrated, and as far as he's concerned, are begging for a kind of love that comes in the form of their semi-racked ding-dong in their mouths. And that's just never going to happen. And so people who can't go there, though it is difficult and not to be expected by the average, civilly educated, what do you think you're doing? You're participating in it. Don't get mad at me, get mad at the magical thinking and the people who, absolved of all moral agency, as humans tend to be by such things and their God, are still manifesting conditions and helping conditions which make violence of every kind inevitable. And that's just a difficult problem. And like I said earlier, the fact that it's difficult and unwieldy doesn't mean you don't look at it. I'm not offering a solution. I'm offering the problem. Because there is no solution until you can look at the problem. You think, well, that's fucking difficult. Well, try getting raped by a priest. If you think to yourself that a priest sticking his ding dong in a little girl's mouth is a bad thing, and you think, what I can do besides sending $20 to the local fucking priest foundation to help priests with their interest in children, you could, which is pretty much every bank in the world, you can think about the problem. You can do that for that little girl. Because she's looking at the world before the ding dong incident thinking, oh, the world, people, adults, Mr. John down the street making his brick little garden, and fairies and beauty and rainbows and clouds. In fact, you don't really need fairies as a child. You just have rainbows and clouds. They're fairy enough for you. It's like colors and walking with your mother here and there and the other. And then all of a sudden there's ding dongs in your mouth. That's a fracture, complete fracture in a child's life. And that happens to every child through the school system because all teachers are helping to fracture your mind. That's why they have to take you away from your parents. And whether you leave home, Western society separates you from your mother. It's meant to do that. Humans can be trained. They can be trained to do things which they know not. And to believe that everything they're doing is righteous and medical and sound, and everybody does it. And, every medical science in the world tells you we should do it. And it's very difficult, in a very suspicious, very barbaric sense, to make an adequate provision for any little child's voice ever that might not agree with you and all of your fucking adult friends and neighbors. It's very difficult, isn't it? All of a sudden I ask myself, do you really love children by saying that this is the way the world should be and you should like it? Or do you listen to what children are saying? Do you listen to the children who've had ding dong stuck in their mouth? Do you listen to the children who grew up in a house where their parents fight furiously? Alcohol comes and goes. You ever been around someone who's a mean drunk? Do you want children? How many children are around that every day? It makes you sick with yourself. It can make you sick and have accidents. It can make you piss your bed. They're like demons and monsters. Humans, when they're angry and possessed and parasitical, are the worst kind of creature on the earth to another human mind. A pack of hungry wolves than being around a mom and dad who are too drunk and are too flinging out all kinds of excessive violence and threats at each other around their children. Do you have any idea how fucking common that is? It's going to change your whole fucking life. It's so bad, it'll change your whole fucking life just to think about how fucking often it happens. And that people walking around you trying to make it normal for the rest of their life, or at least during life where they're still relatively vulnerable, go, am I crazy? But I don't feel right as a person. Because the shock lasts the rest of their fucking lives and has a mind of its own. And those people join a cult as quickly as fucking possible. Get me a job, get me some friends. Let me have a fucking boyfriend and girlfriend and survive in the wonderful church of my own independence, financially and economically, from people whom I love, but in ways I would rather not say have scared the fucking little tits off me for the rest of my fucking life. Which is why as people get a bit bitter and resigned about the aging of their parents. The ambivalence, I live in a retirement community, the sadistic ambivalence to people's elderly parents is unconscionable. I live with my mother. She will live a long time because I live with her. I make her fucking healthy. I make it so. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm going to make money, and I'm going to make money. I'm going to make my mother live a long time. What's your goal? I'm going to mother who touched me inappropriately live a long time. Right? Passion for them. I take everything this world does to me, from the stalking of the RCMP to the stalking of retired teachers and young girls and everything else, and I push it towards the health of my family. That's what I always do. I've told stalkers, female spiritualists who come up to me, like, what do you want? Oh, the health of my family. And they just get up and go away. They can see the look in my eyes. I don't give a fuck about you. I'll put up with you if I have to, you fucking cannibalistic piece of shit. What do you think I fucking want? The health of my family, you fucker. Why is that such a fucking mystery? Why do you have to fucking ask me? If you know so much,